Alright, today we're going to make venison stroganoff in a brown sauce. And I'm starting with 2 pounds of venison here. I'm going to cut it into 3/4 inch pieces like this. And I'm using a piece of the hindquarter, one of the roasts. There's 3 roasts on a hindquarter. I'm using one of those. It really doesn't matter which one you use. This is an easy way to do it. Once you get some strips, you just take some kitchen shears and cut them in little pieces. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is add about a tablespoon of oil and about a tablespoon of butter. Let that heat up. And then we're going to brown our meat. Alright, and we want to get this oil and butter real hot so it's sizzling, because we do not want to cook the meat. We just want to brown it. And you may need to do your meat in 2 batches because you don't want to pile too much meat into the pan. So I've already browned this. Got that out. Now I'm browning the second batch. I like to keep my meat in ice before it's waiting to be put in the griddle, so we can discard that now. All right, you can see how nice and brown this is, and like I said, you don't want to cook it. It's actually still very medium rare. It's still rare now, and after it cooks for 5 minutes at the very end, it'll be medium rare. So that's exactly what you want. You don't want to overcook it. Just want to brown it and then heat it up for 5 minutes at the end. Okay, and then while these juices from the meat are still sizzling, definitely don't just dump that out. Use your washed sliced mushrooms. Go ahead and brown those. Get them a little bit tender. And actually, I'm going to put the ingredients, a list of ingredients in this video, but let me just go over the ingredients real quick. So as I said, we have about 2 pounds of venison. We have 1 quart size container of the wash sliced mushrooms. We have a whole medium onion, 1 tablespoon of flour, 2.5 tablespoons of bouillon. You can use bouillon cubes. I like better than bouillon, but use whatever you have. 1/4 cup of sour cream, 2.5 cups of water to go with the 2.5 tablespoons of better than bouillon. 1/2 cup of red wine. You can use a Cabernet. I like this Beringer here. That's a good one. I have a tablespoon of brown mustard or Dijon mustard, and then the recipe calls for a tomato paste, but I usually use whatever I have that's tomato. So we had made stewed tomatoes with our dinner last night. I'm just going to use a tablespoon of this stewed tomato here, and then the butter, a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of olive oil is what I started out the meat with. So these are getting browned real nice now. In a minute, when they're nice and tender, I'm going to go ahead and remove those, and then we're going to put our onions in. Okay, now I've removed the browned mushrooms from the heat. You can see they're nice and tender, nice and brown. They look delicious. So I put a little bit more butter and a little bit more olive oil. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my onions in. I'm going to go ahead and brown and tenderize these. Okay, now these onions are starting to get nice and tender, so we're going to add our tablespoon of flour. Just going to mix that around a little bit. Brown that flour. That's going to get that sauce going almost like a gravy. And then we're going to go ahead and put our beef stock and our wine in. So put in water. We're going to get our bouillon, better than bouillon, in there. Now after I had simmered the meat and the mushrooms, I turned the heat down a little bit, so now I'm going to turn it right back up to get this to a simmer. Now we're going to put in our red wine. And as I said, that better than bouillon is going to simmer in with the water and stir around to make that stock. So we're just going to mix it a little bit. Now I'm going to let this simmer for probably a good 15 minutes. I want to reduce it a little bit, get it to thicken, and then once I do that, I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. While that is thickening, we can also put in some pepper. We don't really need salt at this point. I'd rather not put any in because I've got 2.5 tablespoons of better than bouillon in here, which is very salty. So, and I almost forgot about our noodles. Well, that sauce is simmering. I'm going to boil some water here. Add a little bit of salt to get it to boil a little quicker. And we're going to put this over egg noodles. I got some great value medium egg noodles. You can use wide egg noodles, whatever egg noodles you like. I almost forgot one of the most important steps. Cook yourself up some bacon to sprinkle on the top of this stroganoff. Okay, with about 6 minutes remaining till this meal is ready, I'm going to go ahead and add all these egg noodles in here. Alright, this sauce is really starting to thicken up nice. Oops. I forgot that you had to turn the temperature down when you put the after you put the noodles in. Okay, so let me go ahead and add the sour cream. Gonna add the Dijon mustard. And I'm also going to add a little bit of this tomato juice from the stewed tomatoes. And then we're going to put all of our meat back in with all the juices that go along with it. Now this is going to simmer for only 5 minutes because we don't want to, as I said, we don't want to cook the meat. The meat's not really, it's medium rare with this meal, which is the way I like it. I mean, you can make it maybe medium well, but I just feel like the more you cook it, the tougher it's going to get. Unless you're going to go for like a slow cook for like 2 hours where the meat is nice and tender, but we're not going for that. So while our noodles are finishing, and while the bacon's finishing, and while the broccoli's finishing, and then everything should be done at the same time. So we're really just heating the meat back up now. Now, if you do cook the bacon early on, like as the very first thing, unlike what I did, you can actually simmer your mushrooms and your onions in the bacon grease, which makes it even better. And here is the final product. Got some mushrooms, bacon sprinkled on the top with some extra gravy and the noodles. Let's see how it tastes.
I don't miss video.
Mmm.
Wow.
So delicious. We've got out of here.
Stop posting that on YouTube, you know.
Everybody's chowing.
I can